going to do a new roof, fit a new roof and a new back panel lining on the club car. So before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick look on our website, because I did actually do this about 3 years ago to another car. So the best thing to do when you're going to do any work on your car is firstly look on the Figaro Club website, see if it's already been done, and indeed it has. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to point the camera towards the screen. We've got roof replacement product test. It's quite a good place to start. So it's basically under products and services. So you go to product tests, go down here, you've got roof replacement test. I'm not sure that's coming out, but hopefully it is. Click on that, and we've got the roof replacement product test here, and there's quite good information here because we've got pictures as well as text. What you'll find is when you actually get the roof delivered from the company, I mean, we as a club we're using European trimming company. There's quite a few companies around that do the roofs, but obviously we've chosen to go with those guys. When they deliver the roof to you, you'll get a text information pack with it, but it's not, you haven't got any pictures in it. So this is quite a good place to start. So what I suggest you do is go in here and print this off, and obviously take that out to the car. So that's all from me in the office. So I'm going to start the car in a minute, and hopefully the video is going to take you through what's involved in doing the work. I think it'll be really useful because obviously the car's getting older, more and more roofs are needing replacement. Some people use garages, obviously they can do it as well. The dealers are very quick to change the roofs, but it's quite a nice job if you're fairly practical and you enjoy working on your car. It's got a bit warmer now, so now's the time to do it. No more delays, so I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we're now outside. Obviously you can see I'm donning the old bobble hat, and we're going to have a quick look at the car and see what we've got here. So as you can see, basically this is the original roof. You can tell the originals because they're obviously fairly smooth. Obviously it's fairly dirty, and you can see we've got a typical situation here with the shrinkage of the roof, and in fact it's only just working there because it's obviously hitting this rubber seal. So there is some waterproofing there, but it's very limited. Obviously this should be pretty much in line with the edge of the car here. So this is a good thing to look for if you're going to buy the car as well. So it's what we call shrinkage. So it's basically where the car is, obviously the age of the roof it's shrunk the roof, the age of the car shrunk the roof. So this is obviously 25 years old, this roof, so it's done pretty well. The back again, you can see this is all pretty horrible really compared with the rest of the car. It's dying to be done. Obviously all this has been polished and cleaned, and so this whole piece of material needs to be removed and replaced with a new piece. It's not as daunting as it looks, I can assure you. Okay, so here we are again. Obviously pull the roof back as we normally do when we're storing it in the back of the car. So the first part of the operation is to remove these three elements. We've got obviously the two catches and the middle part, so I'm going to do that first. Fairly easy job, right? Basically need a Phillips screwdriver in there, and you can see two Phillips screws in here. So looks like there's 6 screws to remove, so I'm going to do that first. Okay, the tip here when you're working along here is you'll find these will be really tight, and you can't basically you can't pull that over the little bracket here. There's like a little tab up here, so you're trying to pull it over, you can't, and the reason is because it's stuck to this. So what you need to do is pull this back, and then you'll find it will release. Can't do it because I'm holding the camera, but you can see from this side obviously it was stuck, this piece was stuck to the phone, so that's the reason why you can't pull that out. So this part here, just actually pulled this out. So this was this plastic rivet was pushed in here, so basically you need to pull this out, and you can see this is quite normal. You can see there's quite a lot of mould in here, but the good news is these liners come out really well. You can wash all these, hang them on the washing line, and they look new. So don't get too concerned about this. It's going to be fine. So we're going to work our way back, slowly unpeeling the inside of the liner. So, on to the next bit now. That's basically removing these little tiny plastic rivets, and you can see that the way they work is you've got a little pin that pushes in there, and when it's pushed in it expands inside, a bit like a raw plug. So the thing to do is, using a very small screwdriver like this, you need to basically push that into the hole and lift this up, and then basically this becomes flat and smaller and then pulls out of the hole. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be working our way through the roof. I've actually taken a few off already, as you can see. So the little clips basically run all the way along here. There you can see that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so running along the back on holding the liner up inside. So quite an easy job to do, but as I said, take your time. Just don't try and rush it. Just take your time, and you'll get there in the end. So I'm going to try and video me doing one. So what you need to do is get it in there. As you can see, it's a bit fiddly because I've only got one hand. They will actually come out, so using a lever, a little tiny screwdriver, get it into here. There she comes, and she pops out. No, I can't do it with one hand, it ain't going to work. So almost done now. Obviously got down to the end now. Now the back of it is quite a good design. You've actually got a rod running along the back, and all you do, you just basically unclip it, and as you unclip it, again I can't do a whole lot, but you unclip it and then these pull out at either end, so the whole line will come loose. There is, however, a bolt here, Phillips screw there, and a screw at the back, and to get to that you need to take this lining out, which I probably should have done a bit earlier, but we'll do that in a minute. That's quite easy to do as well. Okay. So almost there, as I said, just got these two screws to take out there, and then the whole thing. Okay, back again with the next part of the process. And if you're going to basically redo the back panel of the car, then you're going to need to take this out, and it's a bit of a job. Basically, what you've got these plastic rivets which push into the metal frame. And what you need to do with your fingers is just give it a damn good pull. It feels as if it's not going to come, but it will actually come off. So as you can see, if you take this off, I'll show you in a second when it's removed what the rivets look like, but you've got some rivets attached to this that basically push into the frame. So that's that. And, we're moving to start to unbolt the main roof. So again, I was just talking about the this is what they look like. So basically these are attached to the cardboard. It's cardboard inside here, and they just basically push it into these areas here. As you can see, some of them come detached, so I've got a bit of a problem with that. I'm going to have to repair that. It just didn't want to come away from the frame. You have to get that off to basically get the back of the window out. So a bit of a job that. So the next part of the project is to take out the 6 bolts at the back of the roof that obviously holds it onto the back panel where the window is. And we're going to need a 10mm socket. Basically unscrew these, and then obviously that means the whole of the roof comes off. You've also got 2 little plastic rivets that also need to come out. So we'll do that next. I'm just going to now remove the back of the panel here, and to do this, probably best to put a screwdriver in and slowly, carefully put it apart. There we go. So we've undone the bolts, and that's what you get. That's pretty much all done now, and this is the bit we'll be recovering this later on and putting the seal back on that. So that's it. So I thought I'd show you the frame without the roof on, because it's quite an interesting thing to do. obviously slips into a sleeve on the actual roof, and you've got these two bits of webbing kind of giving extra support. I think the clever thing is, as I talked about before, you've got this stainless steel braiding which runs down into a rivet here, and basically what happens is as you tighten the roof up, it basically tensions the roof. You can imagine the roof on here now inside the sleeve, and as you tighten this up, pushing it down, it makes this very, very taut, so it obviously allows a good bit of tension on the roof there. Really, really clever design, I think, typical kind of Japanese. So that's basically the roof we did off, and as I said, we've got to peel all this off. I mean, what I suggest you do when you do this sort of stuff is, you know, do this maybe in an afternoon and then leave it for the night and start the next day doing something else, you know, on the next bit. Don't try and do it all in a day, because it is quite fiddly, and you want to make a good job of it. So we're going to move on to the next part now. Okay, so the next part now is we're going to take the rear window panel off. Obviously we want to recover that, so as we get it off. Now, so to do that, we've got these bolts here, Phillips. There's two there, and then there's two on the other side. And obviously remember to disconnect the electrics for the rear window heater. So we're going to take that off, and that will remove the rear window. We've got to drill that out as well. No, that's fine, so we'll do that in a minute. One of the things that is interesting on the Figaro, which I only learnt about last year, is these bits here. There's two spring steel rods connected to the roof, and it's very clever. They're sort of designed under tension, and that's what happens when you put the roof down. It's basically supporting it. If we didn't have these, the roof would just flip flop around. So that's what these rods are under here. That's what you want to know. So I've cut this frame around where the cable goes into, and you can just see the rivet there. So we've got to drill that out. Now, what I suggest you do is put a cloth over the car, because you're going to get horrible metal swoof in the car if you don't do that. So do that, and use probably something like a 5mm drill to drill the top of that out, and then this will come free. So that came out fairly easy. As I said, just a small drill in the top of there, and then this comes out. This is the free piece. So the most important part this is, you don't want to mess this up, because if you do, you have it. So next part now is brought the back panel into the workshop here, and I'm going to start stripping this apart to obviously expose the metal and recover it. So the first part is, if you look here, you've got basically three plastic rivets. This one was connected to the car and the roof before, if you remember, so that overlaps onto that. Basically it's a case of with a very small screwdriver slowly getting this up, and then with a pair of cutters pulling them out slowly, and what they actually look like is this. So very small plastic kind of rivets that push in, and then you need to undo this and this as well, and then the back whole of that back section comes away as well. So next part is to strip these off. Basically you just pull these off like so. You have to get these off, because what happens is the new piece of roof obviously sits underneath it, so you've got no choice, and it's a good excuse really to clean all this up. It looks really sort of manky and dirty, so all this will clean up like new, so worth doing. Put these over here for safekeeping, and then what we need to do next is this whole back section needs to be peeled off. Again, you need to do this because the new vinyl is going to go underneath this piece here. So basically next part is to pull that off. So taking that nut off the other side of here, and basically what you've got to do is just peel this back gently, because what you don't want to do is break this rubber. You do not want to do that, so you have to take it really gently and slowly peel this back. And you can see there's a bit of rust here, which I'm going to have to sort out. So slowly peel this whole section off. This whole rubber section needs to come away, and to get to the panel. Okay, next part is to take the rear window out, and it's so easy. It's really easy. And all you need to do is basically get a screwdriver in here and get it going. The camera. Eventually fall out, so I can't really do it because I'm holding the camera, but believe me, it will happen. So you have to peel this back, and then from the inside of the car, and the window will fall out that way. So I've now got the window out. There we go, nice and empty. And next piece of work is to basically peel the vinyl off. So next. One thing that's worth doing is just marking with a pencil where this finishes, because once this is off, you're not actually going to know what shape to cut this out, unless you just obviously can get this off in one piece and match it. So I tend to put a pencil line along there. It's interesting, you can see we've got some rust here, so obviously we'll be getting some water in. It must have been coming, this is the top of the car. They must have been coming right down and sitting in here. So that's interesting. We've got a bit of rust in there, which is a bit concerning, but it's not too much to be. I think it's just surface rust, so I can get that out. Able to grind that back as it continues. So right, next. Got the material off the back now. And what we need to do really is just rub this down as flat as we can. Obviously we need to key on the new material. This you do by evo sticking both sides of the material. So you evo stick on here with a brush, and then you evo stick the inside of the vinyl. But before we do that, obviously we're going to have to make good some of this. Obviously, as I said, prepare it as best you can. The inside is looking quite good. There's a bit of rust down here, so we'll see to that. Put a bit of keel rust on that to get that rust off, and then make that good and give that a bit of black paint. And again here you can just see this is the inside suffering a little bit. So that's the job to do, and the next bit will be, I'm obviously not going to video me painting it all, it's going to be fairly boring, but I'll get it all good, made good, and then the next bit is we'll video the actual application of the vinyl onto the back of the panel, and that's a bit of fun, so I hope it'll go well. You wonder what the noise is. It's my chicken down there. She joins me in everything, don't you, darling? Yeah, that's it. So, over now. So, next part of the cleaning is we're going to clean the inside of the line. You can see that we've got a bit of mould on there, and I use a good old Sillet Bang. A little bit of that on there, and that all comes off lovely. So it's a good time to, as I said, use it to clean the bits of the car. You're never going to see this, I know. It's going to be hidden from the roof. Obviously this is the internal liner, but it's nice to do and worth doing. Clean everything before you put it back on the car again. And when it's all finished, hang it on the line to dry. Okay, so so you remember we were talking about the rust on the rear panel. Obviously the best way of removing rust is firstly to get the rust off with a nice piece of coarse emery cloth or sandpaper, and obviously you can visually see if there's any rust left on there. So remove the rust and then use the trusted thinners with a cloth to make sure you've completely removed all of the muck on the metal. Leave that to dry for about 5 minutes, and then what I tend to do is give it a coat of enamel undercoat. I've just done this inside area here, you can see it's drying quite well, so that's the inside area there that there's quite a bit of rust on that yesterday, so I've got that off. Well, I can do that whilst we're looking at it. So nice piece of undercoat. Important thing is with these jobs is, you know, sure you take your time and enjoy it. Really, it's no point in rushing it. You've got to it's nice to think you can do it all in a day, but you can't. So the best thing to do is put this on, leave it for a good few hours, let dry, and then top coat that with a black enamel. This is a standard sort of Elford's gloss black paint, or there's another one here which is an enamel paint metal. So do that, and obviously get it all looking good, and then the next part is to apply the vinyl to the back of the panel. So we've got the rear panel liner in here, and I don't know whether you can remember a little while back, but I actually, when I was removing it, one of these clips, actually I ended up pulling the bracket out, so I've arrodited that in now, glued that in, and that's going to be fine. So as I said, you might have to make these odd little repairs as you go along, because sometimes when you're working on a car and you're pulling bits out of it, it won't always come out as it went in. You know, it's 25 years old, so things are going to be old, and they're going to be quite difficult to remove sometimes. So don't be too worried. Aerodite that up, and you're going to be fine. Okay, so the next part of the roof fitting process is to prepare the roof. Now this roof has not come with any string to run down the inside of here to pull the cables through, because obviously we've got to get the two cables on the car through the roof here. So a way of doing it is to use just use some curtain cord here. This is designed for hanging curtains and putting nets up and stuff like that, but it's ideal for this. And what you need to do is you need to slide it down through this area here. You can just see basically between the plastic liner here and the roof. So you need to put this in first, and then with a piece on the end, basically we're going to put a piece of string on here, pull that through all the way through so it comes back out of here. So you end up with string basically through both sides of the roof, and then what we can do then is, with the roof basically on the car, we'll attach the two Belden cables with the rivets through onto the string, and then we'll pull it through the roof, obviously making sure you've got the roof connected around the right way. So that's the next part. Okay, so here we are back at the car now, and I've decided to keep this. I was going to replace this curtain rail with string, but to be honest, this is going to be stronger. So what we need to do is, where we've got the Belden cable here with basically the plate on the end here, or the connector on the end, which takes obviously the rivet, we need to thread this through this channel here in the actual roof, and then that obviously keeps the whole thing tight as the roof comes together. So to do this, obviously the thing to do is to connect this to the end of the cable, and the way I do it quite simply is I pull this out, wind a couple of bits through the hole, so if we up and just basically have a sort of a fit to see if everything's lined up and everything's okay. It's good also to pull this taut and just make sure you can feel that there's nothing wrong here, because obviously this needs to run down inside this sleeve. So I'm going to do that next, and we'll move on to it. Okay, so we're on the next part of the project, which is to recover the rear panel. And over here, a good little tip, I think, is to mask the areas where obviously the vinyl isn't going to be attached, because what you don't want to do is put contact adhesive on the vinyl. It'll end up sticking on these areas. So what I've done is masked the areas. Basically, when you take the vinyl off, you'll see the areas that it's not connected to. So a little tip is just to mask these off. Same with the inside, because obviously that's where the window's going to go. So you don't really want obviously lots of sticky Evo stick or contact adhesive in here. And the same with the back. This is basically got a rubber seal on the back of it, and also on the inside as well. So if we turn it over, basically what happens is the vinyl wraps around this area here, and then we've got these plastic strips that basically run down here. I think it's the other side, that way, that's it. So basically you want to put some masking tape down here as well, obviously, because what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to put the Evo stick onto the vinyl that neatly, so it's going to end up being on the vinyl. When as you peel it over, it's going to end up might be sticking on here. So clearly, make sure that you put masking tape along here as well. Also, what you want to do is ensure the areas sort of free of any bumps and muck, because obviously the minute the vinyl goes onto this, the last thing you want is a small piece of dirt in here, which obviously will end up showing as a bump on the back of the vinyl, and you'll be able to see it. You rub your hands over it, you'll notice the bump, so you don't want that. So obviously clean it down, give it a good degrease with a bit of thinners, and you're ready for the tricky bit, which is obviously to put the vinyl onto this. So we'll do that next. Okay, so the next part of the operation is basically to put the vinyl onto the back panel. And the best thing to do is to lay the vinyl down first. Obviously the vinyl end here onto the bench, and making sure there's nothing on here. What I tend to do is lay the panel as such. Obviously it's going to need to come down onto here, and it's going to need to come down onto here. So using a pencil, basically mark around the panel, and then this is going to give me a guide basically where I want to put the glue, because obviously what we don't want to do is glue the whole vinyl, because that's going to be a waste of glue. So basically penciling that, and we need to make sure that we're going to turn this around the right way, which is that way around, and pull this over to here and down here, and then basically what will happen is we're going to put the Evo stick onto the panel first, and then Evo stick here onto the vinyl. The best thing to do really is to Evo stick this first and then let it dry. Obviously making sure there's no bits, because what you don't want is any little bits of grit in here, because believe it or not, when you push this down, you will notice the smallest of pieces of grit between the vinyl and the panel. So that's the next stage. Okay, so now I've basically glued the inside of the vinyl, and as you can see, it's glued fairly accurately, and obviously I've gone inside the line basically on the panel as well, so go all over it. And don't forget also, you need to glue the inside edge as well down here. So this is the glue, and you need to let that go off for about 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my helper. You need 2 people for this job.
Smelly.
Right, so what we're going to do is we'll spin it upside down. Let's go that way, yeah? Yeah. Same as before, so if I pick that up, you pick
Got glue on this side.
right, don't worry about that, that will come off. You need to keep it taut, and whatever you do, you mustn't let it go. So what we need to do is we need to line it up. You need to go your way a bit, I think. How much have you got your way?
Quite a bit.
Yeah, so have I. So you need to go this way a little bit. Point it that way. No, don't let it touch. Keep it taut, keep it taut.
Right, we're going down.
No, you need to go your way a bit.
What do you mean by your way?
That way, towards the window. That's it. No, don't let it touch. Keep it taut. Keep it taut. Pull it your way. That's it. Concerned it's not quite. So your lines there, your pencil lines underneath, if you come down like I am, your pencil line's going to touch with the edge of it, that's what I'm saying. Those pencil lines need to be...
Yeah, I reckon so. I can't see very well.
Well, come down where I am.
Well, I'm frightened it's going to touch. You'll shout at me.
So it can't...
They've got to be on the inside of that recess.
They've got to be sort of touching the edge there. So it needs to come your way. I think you need to come your way a bit more. Pull it. Pull it. Pull it tighter, much tighter, so it's really, really taut. That's it.
Oh.
Well then, we'll have to go for it now.
Going down?
Yeah. That's it. Now keep it taut, really, really taut. Really stretch it right across. That's it. That's it. Keep it really taut. Put it as hard as you can.
Is this on video?
Oh yeah. That's it. That's it. Okay.
Can I
Go.
go now?
Yep. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Go.
Smelly.
A little bit out actually, hasn't it? It'll be okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yep. Thank you. That's gone on quite well. As you can see, what we were trying to do there is keep it really, really tall before it goes down onto the panel. It's touch and go. It's the hardest part, but that's looking pretty good to me. So there we go. It's good. Let's turn the football off. So that's pretty good. Happy with that. Don't worry about little bits of glue on it. You can get those all off at a later stage. Okay. Turn the video off and I'll do the next stage in a minute. So what I'm doing next is I've just cut this in, and basically this is where the vinyl goes inside the back of the panel. So the same here. The best thing to do is, obviously we want this to overlap into here about 20mm. So what I've done is I've just marked this, and with a pair of scissors basically cut all the way down along this line, and then fold it back in on itself and push it in, and then that's happily done. Now, there's a little tip here: when you're cutting this out, obviously what you want to do is push it as well in as you can, because obviously what we're trying to do here is fill the edge of the panel, and with a long knife cut it, obviously using this as a template, because then obviously you're not going to cut it too short. So that's a good little tip, that because obviously what we don't want to do is cut this too short, and then the rubber will end up noticing, you know, that the vinyl will be before the rubber, which is not good. So using a long blade, basically cut it all the way around. So now I've cut that, basically got a raw edge here. So what we need to do now is trim this up and push it in. Obviously this is where the window sits. Good little thing here is a wallpapering roller. If you roll it in, that's quite good to get the edges, and then using a knife we're looking to basically level it up between right on the corner here. Okay, not here. Don't go too far this way, because otherwise that's basically what happens when you put the rubber, you're going to expose the metal. So same again, using the little roller down this edge. Want to tuck it around here. Starting to look good now, starting to take shape, so pleased with it at the moment. These jobs are always a touch and go, I have to say. I've done 2 now, and it's always tough, but this one looks like it's working out okay. So this is an awkward little bit. This is the bit at the back here, basically this little corner here, and I tend to tuck this back up inside here again. So obviously it stops it having a raw edge here. It's not what you want. So I've cut that level here, and this is the back of the car. So the roof, basically what happens is the roof will come up over here. What you don't want to do is you don't want to cut this too short. This is basically the bolts that bolt the roof plate, which is at the top of the back of the car, onto the roof. So you won't actually see this element of the car, you won't see. But what you have to be very, very careful of is do not cut this too short. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to measure. I've cut this level, and we're going to put a line down here and cut it to that only, making sure that we've got access to these holes. So this is a good little tip. Using the old vinyl that came off the back of the panel, what I tend to do is, if you lay this on here, this can be a template for you cutting this, because obviously this is where it was cut before, so you can use it as a template. But as I said, please be careful not to cut too far this way. So I've now cut this out, and as you can see, I've been fairly careful with ensuring that this doesn't go too far up. A good little tip as well is basically when you take the thing to pieces, you'll notice that, as I said, that the top of the roof hangs over here, and it's about 2.5 inches from this edge. So if you measure that, 2.5 inches about there. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to have a plate that sits over the top of there quite easily. Okay, yep, so that's it. So next part is to basically put the bats on, put these strips on inside, put the rubber strip back on here, and have a good tidy up, get all this glue off, and then it's finished. So on to the next part. Okay, the next part now is to basically, what we need to do now is put the rubber seal, which obviously is where the boot comes back down and connects with the rear panel, the back panel of the car. And the best way of doing this is to firstly put rubber gloves on, secondly to make sure that you put some masking tape onto the vinyl, because you don't want to get this adhesive basically onto the vinyl, because if you do, it won't come off very easily. What you need here is what they call tiger seal, which you can get basically off the internet, and it's basically a glue that glues rubber and other various bits to metal. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this down inside here, because this needs to adhere and stick to this plate quite well. It has got 2 bolts, as you can see, which sort of does 2 things really. One, it aligns it correctly, obviously ensures that the seal is correctly aligned, and 2, it obviously keeps it on there. And to do that, there's a built-in stud on the other side. So the best thing to do is to run the sealer down there, and then obviously stick it on, which we'll do next. Okay, so I've done that. I've run that obviously inside here, and obviously around here. So this will push, basically, when I put the rubber seal on, this will ooze into the seal. That's good contact. So just showing you the completed rear windscreen, and it's come up pretty well, pretty happy with it. Obviously given it a clean, and it's looking pretty good. So I put the windscreen back in, and so what I'm going to do is leave it to dry overnight for 12 hours, and I'll fit it to the car tomorrow. So yeah, good job, pleased with it, looking good. Okay, so we're back out at the car now, and this is quite a tricky part of the procedure. And basically what we're going to be doing here is gluing this top part to the top of the roof here. And the best thing to do, I think, is to obviously protect your car at the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue on the outside face of that and leave it to dry, leave it to really go off well, and then I'm not going to glue this until it's actually slipped over, and then what we can do is we can pull it back and glue it, because if you put glue on here and glue on there, what's going to happen is it's going to catch, and it might not be in the right position. So the first thing to do is to glue the underside of here, and it's obviously, for that I've just turned it inside out, and then obviously what we need to do is afterwards is to run some glue around here when it's actually on. And what we can do is we can do that because we can get it in position and just peel it back and put some glue here and then push it down. So I think, as I said, if we glue this first, it's going to be more difficult to do. Okay, so that's that part glued. So we're just waiting for it to dry now. Make sure it's touch dry, and then turn it round inside out, round the right way. Okay, so what I've now done is I've now pushed this over the top and connected the corners, and basically glued the inner side here, which, as I said, is easier to do basically than after you've glued this side. So you want to basically peel this over, and this edge here, this inner edge here, needs to be just that side of it, so it tucks over like that, and that's very clear, but that's the way it needs to be, like that. Okay, so the next part is to rivet the braiding here, the cable here, to the plate. And to do that, obviously you need a rivet gun, and it's important that you ensure that this is round the right orientation. So in other words, make sure that the bracket is on the outer, the plate is on the outer, so the cabling is on the outside of the roof, and obviously you want it on the top as well, and obviously round the right way. So here you can see, I'm just going to do this one next. So that's it, that's the next part. Okay, so we're on to the last part now, and you can see that I've pretty much looking pretty good now. This is going to dry overnight. What you don't want to do, I don't think, I mean, some people do these in a day, I don't think it's good to do that. You want to leave this to go off really hard overnight. So I'm going to leave that like that, come back here. I've basically temporarily bolted the back here, and one thing to consider, there's a bit of play in the rear panel. It will go left and right, so what you need to do is look at these gaps here. So compare that gap with that gap, because sometimes when you put the roof on, as I said, there's some play left and right, so what will happen is this gap might be much smaller and you'll have a bigger gap the other side. So what I tend to do is put it on fairly loosely, and you can actually push it and get it in so it's looking fairly square at the back, but that's looking quite good now. And the same with up and down. It's a bit of trial and error. You might have to sort of bolt it up, pull the roof down, and if it's not, what will happen is when you put this rear boot down, it may not connect very well down here. So what you may have to do is just to adjust those 4 bolts on the back of here, and I do all of that, get all this done before you start lining the inside of the roof. And there's obviously inside here there's some insulation to go inside here, or like some capping that goes over here, so don't put that on yet. Basically get everything connected up, make sure the roof fits properly before you do any of that. But that's looking quite good now. I'm quite pleased with that. You know, it's looking quite nice. The back's looking quite good. You can imagine this being back here. This is one that I did a couple of years ago. This is the other car that we've got, so this is the emerald green, and I did this a couple of years ago, probably about 3 years ago. It's still looking pretty good. You can see that it's still a good roof. So, and I also did the back, so we've got two the same now, which is good. So we'll carry on and do a little bit more tomorrow when this is set. Just a little tip here, before you start to attach the lining, there's there's a centre one here and a centre one there, and that just holds the roof in place, because what you're trying to do, you're trying to attach the lining and the roof through the same holes. And another good tip is with these tiny little rivets, you want to take them apart. So this is obviously the pin that pushes through the middle of that, but when it comes out of the car, you'll notice there'll be like this. Okay, so don't try and put it in like that, because it's quite fiddly and difficult. What I tend to do with my fingers is pull them apart. Now you've got just the collar part first, and if you push the collar part through the hole, it's quite easy. Then once it's in position, you can then push the pin basically into the collar, and it's fairly easy to do. Okay, so this is the last part now, just to show you what she looks like. Really pleased. As I said, you may have to adjust this rear panel. That has got slight adjustment. I sort of put it in the middle and it seemed to work out okay, but you can see what you're looking for here is for these to be level and for the distance here to be the same both sides. So we can put the boot down now. That's it. Looking pretty good. Happy with it. Inside. This, as I said, clean this and you take it out, it comes back nice. All done. So, good job done. Thanks for viewing. Good luck with your roof. If you need any help or tips, obviously come through to Figaro Owners Club. I'll see what I can do on an email to you to help you. Cheers, bye.